Improving business processes and services. In this module, I'm going to be sharing about business processes. So for every project that we do, if there's a change in processes, this needs to be captured. So there's something called business process hierarchy. So when you look at enterprise level, and then you look at the lower level. So the enterprise level is at the level of value chain. So how an organization delivers value. Say, for example, I want to order an item from Amazon. So it would impact maybe customer service, the warehousing team, the logistics team that does the dispatch, and then I get my goods. Happy days. There is more to it than that. So you have the primary activities and you have the support activities. So for whatever an organization does to kind of create value, we all need these core activities and the supporting activities. The supporting activities could be the HR, the finance, and so on and so forth that support the value chain. So now, how does this actually get triggered? A business process is something that has an input, a piece of activities in the between, and then an outcome. So if there is no tangible outcome or output, then that process is redundant. So how do we improve a process? What are the things that we look at? Remember we said business analysis is about improving business processes and using IT to enable that change. So I need to actually look at the processes holistically and bring back the puppet framework, looking at the people that are doing the work, looking at the processes they're working on, what are the organization, the pillars that are holding it up, what is the information they're passing, what is the technology they're using. So all of that will help me to look at where there are gaps. So as a business analyst, I will be looking out for where there is excessive hands-off, where there is duplication of effort, where there is potential redundant step. Why are we doing it? Oh, that is how we've been doing it. It doesn't add any value. So any process that exists that doesn't have value must go. For example, when we are mapping and looking at processes, when I say, well, this process has existed and it's only Bookie that knows this process, something like a single point of failure should never exist, but it happens. So how do we eliminate all this? So your role as a business analyst is to go into the organization and do something called as-is analysis. Understand where they are and what they're doing. If you don't know where you're at, how will you know when you get there? So always start from an as-is position. What do you do now? Who are the people doing it now? And how can we improve the process? So there are different tools that can help you model the process. So you've done your analysis, you've sat with a team. Remember the investigation techniques, which is your workshops, your scenario, your one-to-one interviews, your prototyping, different ways of engaging your stakeholder and investigating the situation is already happened. So I now know where the gap is and I want to bridge the gap. So you need to model the process using different tools. You can use Visio, you can use Lucidchart. There's so many tools out there. For this minute, don't worry too much about the tool. I've actually had an interview where I have to physically draw on pen and paper a process model. So who are my actors? What are the steps? What is the outcome? What are the decision points? Those are what you need to be interested in. If you know that, then using a tool will not be an issue because then you can transfer that knowledge. So one of the things I tell my students to do is to understand the notation. So we have different types of notation. Two popular ones are UML and BPMN. UML is Unified Modeling Language and BPMN is Business Process Notation Language. So how do you understand the differences? We will share an example with you so you can see what this actually looks like. However, what are the key things that you need to be able to model a process? You need to be able to know who your actors are. You need to be able to know what the actions are. You need to know the steps and the processes and any decision points. And most importantly, what is the outcome? What does the end game looks like? And something called business rules. They're always things that guide how an organization works. So you must be aware that there could be potential business rules that will be constraints that you need to be mindful of. So now, moving on from you understanding the notation to model the process, I've actually used this framework called SIPOC. The acronym is SIPOC. It's supplier, process, input, output, outcome, and then the customer. What is it? So who's the supplier? Who's feeding that process? What is the input? Is it a form? Is it a report? And what are the processes? What happens in between? And then what is the output? And who's the customer? If a process does not have a tangible outcome and a customer is redundant, always remember that. So once we've done the analysis, you gather all they're doing right now. I also use something called stop state change analysis. So you look at the things that needs to stop. In that column, you can use an Excel spreadsheet. Then you look at the things that need to change, and you look at things that it's going to stay. So all of that part of your analysis, you're going to the meeting, you're having workshops, you can shadow them and see what they do. You can get them to write what they do. Mind you, before you shadow anybody, make sure you check with them because they might have trade unions and that may not be allowed. So be aware of your environment where you work and also the terms and conditions governing that organization. So process improvements help an organization to be more efficient, to save money, and also to be able to standardize their processes, to be able to kind of measure what you don't know you can't measure. And you might get an interview question where they're asking you, why do we even improve processes? You must be able to standardize it and also measure what is coming in and what is coming out and see how there can be potential benefit from that activity that's been carried out. So we've learned a little bit about how to model the process. Now there are different ways, there are different process models. You have activity diagrams, you have data flow diagrams, you have something called swim lane diagrams. So swim lane diagrams capture at an activity level. And this most times could give you like the lanes, the lower level activities. A process is always triggered by an event. I want to buy something on Amazon, it's an event. I want to go from here to maybe I want to buy something from a shop. The trigger is purchasing something. So there must be a trigger. I want to register for a course, that's a trigger, the event driven. So we model processes at level 3. Like I said, we have process hierarchy. So the first layer is your organization, very high level. Then you have your group of business processes, that's your level 2. If you take, for example, HR now. So your level 1 will be the HR function. And then your level 2 will be HR group of activities for an employee life cycle from hire to exit. Payroll in between, performance and goals and all of that, taking you through that journey. And then you can now take one of those like hire process and decompose it into your level 3 step-by-step activities. So oftentimes you model your processes at level 3. Some people even have it lower than that. For exception processes, they might have a level 4. Then you have your procedures. Some people call it standard operating procedure, right? SOPs. So those are the lower level detail of processes where you have the screenshot, click this, click that. For anybody that's joining a role, maybe a customer service, maybe a business analyst, you get a procedure to do your job. So what are the tools that you can use? I've mentioned some tools already. You can use PowerPoint, you can use Excel. Keep it simple, but key thing is you must know that for any process to exist, there must be something called TPCOM. It's an acronym called trigger, process, outcome, customer, and measurement. So if you don't have that, you don't have a process. Just a quick recap. In improving businesses, you're looking at keeping it simple. There's an acronym called CASE. that an 8-year-old can look at it and follow it through. And most importantly, you want to remove redundant steps. You want to remove excessive hands-off and passing it from here to there. You want to remove duplication. So you're looking at ways that you can just single point of failure, make things more efficient, save the company money. That's all about. They can deliver value to their customers. So that is how you can help.